Life is sweet. Let it sweep you off your feet.
Hi, this is Ali and Find Your Joy, and we are back with the amazing, the incredible, the oh my gosh, this guy has stories for days, Lonnie Glass. Welcome back, Lonnie.
Hey, another day, another dollar. Well, not another dollar, just another day.
That's right. That's right. When we were just chatting because we're going into episode 2, part 2, you were talking about taking care of the people and cleaning up things and stuff. And I thought, you remind me very much of well, you're a bit of a prophet. I see you as kind of a prophet, and I'll tell you why. I think that you have a gift, and I was sort of talking about this a little bit before. So there's that you are this incredibly disciplined and skilled individual, and those are handy things. Those are really good. On top of that, though, you have this huge heart and a lot of integrity, and you're really kind, and you see things in others, and then you go for that. So when you were talking last time about, drummers and different people and seeing where they've come and the people that you're surrounded with, I just I was thinking, are you aware that those people, if they're reciting the amazing people that they're surrounded with, that you would be on their list? And that's and the and the prophetic part is, I think, I remember years ago, a voice, right? Whatever, whether people want to call them whatever they are, a prophet or a revelatory person or a psychic, I don't really care. But I heard a really good description once, was that it doesn't take much to see something, a flaw in another person. That takes no great gift. We're humans. You know what I mean? You walk into any room and you're going to see a lot of flaws in there. What's a treasured quality in a person is a person that sees the diamonds in the rough, the person that sees all that a person could be, and then they fan that flame. They they speak it to the person, they speak it over the person, they
Oh,
bring
yeah.
that to life. And I think that's something, that a gift that you walk in.
Amazing. It just made me think of another little story. Uh,
Yoo-hoo!
Again, a drummer. His name is Phil Krawchuk, and he lives in Calgary. He's just a dynamite. And I got to say, as a bass player, the rhythm section is, for me, it's even objectively, the rhythm section is the key
Yes.
to a band. I mean, you can have a good band with a great rhythm section. The good band becomes really good.
Yes.
And a great band with a crappy rhythm section can become mediocre. Anyways,
Yes.
we're the unsung part of sort of music as the rhythm section. But Phil and I were fanatic golfers, so we would have our golf clubs in the van where we're driving, and of course, if we saw a golf course, we'd stop, and the other guys, we'd say, okay, take a rest. We're going for 3 hours to golf, and so we would golf our way on tour, and we were very similar, our talent as golfers, which was quite good, and so we were very competitive. But then I started realizing, my God, Phil, he's really incredible golfer. He's becoming unbelievable. So I told him, I said, Phil, I think you're a great drummer, but I think you should quit. And I think you should become a golf pro. I said, you're good enough. You know, think about it. If you think your dreams are to be a rock and roll star drummer, your odds are very slim. He was, I think, 35 or 38 at the time. I said, it'll take you 4 years to go to school and get the proper degree so you can have your card as a pro. You'll be a pro anywhere, any golf course, and you could still play.
Yes.
Just reverse it. Make golf your thing, and then you'll become. So I went off and I did other things. What do I find out? He's a golf pro.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
He went and became a golf pro, and he moved to Edmonton, and he got his degree for it, and he became a golf pro. And he's a lot younger than I, but he still has his card, so he can still be a pro. But so what did he do with his money? Bought studio equipment, and he recorded a recording studio, and he was drumming and continued to drum, continued to do music. And so he's double faceted. And so he's a great friend of mine, and he lives in Calgary now. And, we went on tour in Finland together. I took him, and, we're on the ship going to Stockholm for a little break. And I walk in, I start talking to this girl, cute Finnish woman, photographer. And then I go back to Phil and I say, Phil, you gotta try and hook up with this girl. I think she's really cute. And I think she'd be fine. So we ended up marrying this girl. It's unbelievable. Like, I have all these little scenarios that have happened.
I'm telling you, you're a prophet, man.
Yeah. I think the Indians call them bodhisattvas. They decide they're not going to go into the transcendental enlightenment. They'll come back and help others.
Yes, well, that's beautiful. I love that. Imagine
but my favorite one, I have to say this because I love her so much, is Sarah Smith.
Oh.
And, Sarah, I've known, I guess I first knew her around, it's almost 25 years, but when she was obviously very young, and I was doing my ZZ Top thing, and my guitar player, this guy, Billy Durst, who I got playing for me, this was the guy I went on tour with, by the way, Billy Durst, that got me into thinking about doing the ZZ Top thing. So he went off to do his thing. I was with my boyhood friend. My boyhood friend left, actually, from an argument we had, and he split. And I was walking down the street, and I see this cab at the corner. And I'm honestly, this is like, you couldn't write this. I'm thinking to myself, what the hell am I going to do? Who am I going to find that's even close to John as a guitar player? We have all these gigs and tours coming up. And at the corner is this taxi. And the taxi driver is Billy, the guitar player.
You see?
And so
you are just...
It's unbelievable, Elliot. So I say, Billy, you want to be in a band? And he looks at me and says, great. And I said, only thing I have to find out, can you grow a beard? He says, sure. So I told him the ZZ Top thing. Now, Billy still has his beard. Like, this is like 30 years. And his beard is down to his waist, and it's white. He's aged. Anyway, so Billy becomes the guitar player, and we're rocking, having a great time. Okay. We've gone to Finland a couple of times. So I call him up. I say, Billy, it's Finland time. And he says, Lonnie, I can't go. I said, come on, it's so much tour, this book. What's the problem? He said, I'm working with this young songwriter named Sarah Smith. And, and I just can't go. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring Sarah with us, and she'll open the night. She'll open for us every night. So Sarah, I gave Sarah her first experience of being.
Oh my gosh, this is the best. This is the best story ever.
Yeah. So Sarah comes on tour, and then we get back, and she comes to visit me, and because they were thinking by the end of the tour, Billy and her wanted me to become their manager.
Right.
Canada. So I had been thinking about it. So I said to Sarah, okay, here's the hard news. If I was your manager, I would say to you, Billy Durst is a phenomenal guitar player, but he's my age. I was like 50 years old. I said, Sarah, you gotta go find a guitar player who's hungry and young like you. Because right now, it looks like you're playing with grandpa, right? And it's cool, but it's like you're a punky rocker, and you want to legitimize yourself. You can still use Billy as a songwriting partner, use him in the studio for his great playing, but get someone young. So there was like didn't go so well. However,
There
honestly,
was moments.
honestly, 10 years later, I saw that Sarah was playing nearby where I was living. And I thought, oh, gee, I haven't seen Sarah in 10 years. I'm going to go in and say hi. So I walked in and she saw me and she just ran over and hugged me. And she said, Lonnie, you were right. And that's what she'd done. She'd gotten this young kids, and they were just young punk band, and they were getting really successful and doing great. And I was so thrilled with her. And I just recently, as 5 years ago, I said, Sarah, we were in touch, and I said she wanted to come out west. I said, okay, I'll get you some gigs. So I did. I got her some island gigs, and I drove her and her bass player around. They were coming as a duo. So I became her valet. And I said, all I will ask is that I can open a couple of shows for you, doing my acoustic. So we did. And then Sarah moved out to Pender Island.
Right, right.
And she immediately called me and said, I'm out west now, Lonnie. You want to be my bass player? It's like payback. I'll pay back for what you did. I said, great, I'm in. So I've been her bass player since then. We've gone to Europe a couple of times. We're going again. And, but, we're like soulmates, and I love her so much. Like she's one of the most amazing ladies anyone could meet, really. She's absolutely beautiful. And she's been through her own little hell life, which can either kill you or make you stronger. And
that's right. That's the whole thing, right?
And she made it through, and she's just an adorable human being, and I love her.
Oh, that's awesome. I actually was able to do an interview with Sarah and get to know her a little bit. I mean, I'd known her music a bit, and because of you and Stuart, I was feeling like I knew her because I'm watching you guys as you're going on these tours, and the connection between you and Sarah is you can see that it's electric on stage.
Yeah, I've got
the whole band is great, but
I've got great photos of like her and I, that just something happens. It's totally organic. I mean, it's real, and I've had so many people that just say, are you a couple? And I said, well, maybe it's father-daughter, but it's certainly not couple. But, just moments that happen. I've got one, someone took just a gorgeous photo of her and I were like rocking out and we were getting close. And then Sarah I'm looking right at her and she just moves her head and touches my head with her head.
Oh.
Right in the middle of this thing, and someone got a shot of it. And it's so.
Isn't that perfect that someone got the shot?
Yeah, and it's like that to me sums up our relationship, and it's and again, I have to look at it and objectively and say, there's going to come a time when I'm done. I'm not young. I can go for however long, but I know that she's a younger woman. I won't say what her age is, but
younger than us.
Yeah, when she's a certain age, I'll be 80. So,
Yes.
although Mick Jagger still tours and he's 80.
That's
So,
what I was just gonna say. That
there's
it hasn't
there's every
slowed the Stones
possibility
down.
that I'll still be hobbling around later on. Anyways, that's Sarah Smith, who I love, and I've been gifted to be able to help her, and she's reciprocated
Yeah.
in likewise, which is great. And these are the connections and I know that it can happen in any field you're in. It's not like,
Yes.
but it's, for me, it's particularly poignant in a musical sense because the tendency, as we all are, relatively egocentric. We have our own little shields we put up to defend our artistry, and we cling to that. And it's, I have narcissistic tendencies, what artist doesn't, so
Yes.
to be able to open the door and let others in is great. It's a lovely thing, and it's a way better way to find expression.
Mm.
Is the more you open, the more expressive you can be. So these people have been very instrumental in my own awakening,
Right.
and being able to release. And then, that allowed me to do things like co-write, which is probably one of the great releases of ego,
Yes.
is to let go of
The control.
it's mine, how dare you,
Yes.
right? And I've co-written with a bunch of people, swinging into the writing phase of my life,
Right. And it's
and
true when you think of it like a band, just a band coming together. So as you mentioned, there's, all careers, all professions. There's this way. And I think I'm going to say that people who tend to be on the artistic or more creative side of the spectrum tend to, well, we're passionate and we get you know you get a focus, and it's just, I just want to go for that thing. And I would like you to all come along and support me in that, but I'm not always really wanting to hear a bunch of opinions on it. I think that's kind of where the wheels come off the bus sometimes in bands and things like
yeah,
that.
it can.
And then the other side of it that works so beautifully is learning the conversation of music or any other art, right? That we're all going to support you. We're still playing, but when someone is doing their thing, we're backing off and giving room for that part of the conversation. And that's a beautiful thing, I think, that happens in music, the learning to collaborate, because if we don't really listen, then it's going to be noise, just a wall of
Yeah,
noise
that's
if
very
we
true.
don't figure that out.
Yeah. And but there always has to be, I think, anyways, that when you're collaborating, or especially in a band situation, it's great to hear all the voices, but I think there has to always be the benign dictator. That
Yeah, somebody's got to be
sorry, not
leading it.
benign, benevolent.
Yes, the benevolent. Yes, no,
Dictator that says,
absolutely.
I appreciate your input. I love what you're saying, but we're going to do it this way.
We're going to do it this way.
And that's great. And Sarah's quite like that. Like, she's open to people's, when we're working up a song of hers, and Stuart will say something, and she'll listen. But who's holding the reins. So
yes.
that's good. I have a co-writing friend who is, there's another really neat story. His name is Norman Ball. He's from Leesburg, Virginia. He lives in Ireland now, and he's a poet. He's an incredible poet, and published. And he heard me on some site. I don't know if it was Broadjam or Taxi or one of these platforms, and he heard some of my songs, And he contacted me and said, would you be interested in putting music and your voice to my poetry? So he sent me, I said, well, send me, I've never done it. So send me some stuff and I'll see. So I found one thing I thought would be very cool. And I went into the studio and recorded it and sent it to him. And I said, look, I've taken some license because, you know, some of these words, Norman, no one is even going to know what they mean. It's very erudite. And, you know, I've sort of constructed bridges, which poems don't have. And
Right.
so you tell me if you don't like it. Hey, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So he said, oh man, I love this. This is great. And we've done about 70 songs together. Yeah. We've done
Whoa.
several CDs together. And he gives me full license. He says, I won't even ask you, I won't even tell you to change anything. Do what you want. So, you know,
Oh,
and it's amazing because sometimes I'll write a song and I'll send it to him and he'll say, wow, I wrote that as comic. And I've made it, and me personally, I read it differently and thought of it as this morose, somber. So it's quite fascinating.
I
But
love that too, right? So I love that he wrote something in a certain way. And this is when, what's the word? Collaborations and perspectives and how something lands on us
yeah,
is can be so beautiful because he wrote this thing with
yeah,
something in mind,
completely
and
as a
then
joke.
yes, and then you took it, you know what? It's one of the reasons I often don't like to watch music videos
Yeah.
because I hear a song a certain way and then I see the video. I have a couple of late that I just love the songs, and I saw the video and I'm like, ah, I'm never
Uh,
gonna survive that, wrecked it. Why did I watch that video? It just was so different. But it's a wonderful collective mosaic. It's like a quilt and everybody makes a square and then we put it
yeah,
together. It's so
absolutely. That's
beautiful.
cool. You know, I have this is going to be a segue again into another little,
Perfect.
but uh, I I love traveling. You know, I was on the road, and we were in the United States, and we were in southern Pennsylvania, and of course, everyone in the band was sleeping. And whenever the band went to sleep, that was my chance to go out and do something. And so, because I was always, it didn't matter if I got to bed at 3 o'clock, I was still up at 7. You know,
I'm that way
it's
too.
just the way I am. I love the mornings. So I get up and I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do? So I went to this battlefield in Pennsylvania, Gettysburg, and it was such a mind f for me.
Mhm.
It was so astounding, and that I got home and I wrote this song relating to this battle. Uh, the battle, it was a 3-day battle in Gettysburg, 3 days of fighting, 50,000 casualties, the greatest battle ever on American soil. And it was just stunningly, emotionally gut wrenching. So I wrote this song. And going back to my friend, Eddie Schwartz, so I sent it to him. This is, again, inspiration and how things happen. And I sent him, I said, Eddie, I've written a song. I think it's really good. Give me your opinion. So he listened to it and he wrote me back and he said, Lonnie, this is just fantastic. And he said, have you ever thought of like making an entire CD relating to these battles? He says you have this gift of this kind of imagery for this kind of thing. And so I was so inspired by his inspiration that
Mhm.
I started researching uh, the whole Civil War and battles and individuals, and I ended up writing a CD. It's called The Great Storm, and it's
What is it called? The Great
The
Storm?
Great Storm,
Oh my
which is what
gosh.
it was, which is what it was called by.
Yes, yes.
And so I think it has about 18 or 20 songs, 23 songs on it. Yeah, so I wrote an entire I wrote
Almost a
entire,
triple
an
album.
entire chronology. It was like, because I ended up breaking it apart into one CD, which was like a 9-song CD dealing with slavery, and then 18 songs dealing with the battles of the Civil War. And so I immediately called my friend or emailed my friend Norman and said, Norman, I'm doing this. Can you write some poetry? So he sends me just this unbelievable slew, because he went to one of the major uh, uh, William and Mary universities, which was majorly like Confederate. Like it was like Stonewall Jackson, the great Confederate general. His statue's there. He's buried there at this university. So I got so much material from Norman, and then we started collaborating to do this CD. And I do a concert of this. I've never done one here in Canada, but when I toured the United Southern States, I decided I'm going to go on tour in the United States, and I organized the tour myself and as a solo all through the deep South. So I'm thinking, oh,
Wow.
here's this Canadian kid going down to the South to tell them about slavery and the Civil War. So I'm thinking, oh man, I may not even survive the trip, but it was remarkable. I did it for the summer of 2010, and I played everywhere: universities, colleges, cafes, bookstores, uh, churches, black churches, white churches. And, the greatest thing I got out of it was kids would come up to me and say, man, I wish you were my history teacher.
Oh,
Because I love stories, Ali. And so rather than just research the raw stuff, I would find books on, like I've got one, I still have this book. It says, what you didn't know about the Civil War. And it's all this compendium of all these unbelievable stories and facts about all the stuff that took place. And so I would incorporate these stories. So it wasn't on its own, it's just, songs. And
right.
you'd have to try and glean from the song lyrics the story, which doesn't work. So I would tell the story. So I'd tell the story, and then I'd play the song that relates to the story, because it's the story, right? And all I was doing was bringing it.
Oh, so
I
you're
was
actually giving a bit of a prequel sort of
a
a thing.
preamble, right? It's like a
Yes.
preamble, and I would tell the
Oh,
preamble as just a narrative, and then I would sing the song at the end as like, okay, here it is, that idea that I just told you about. Here's the song I wrote about that.
oh, that's interesting. I don't know if you know my cousin Mark. Mark Perry is a Canadian singer-songwriter.
No, I don't.
And he was if you remember and I'm not going to remember the name of it right now, but the ferry that went down up
Yes, yes,
between
absolutely.
Prince Rupert.
Again, I don't know the name of it, but I know the story.
You know the story.
Yeah.
Well, my cousin Mark and his band were playing at Bouchard Gardens once. He lives in Smithers actually, but he came down and he told the story. And the bit of the story that he told was that someone from the crew knew his music and said, would you consider writing a song about this situation that happened?
Wow.
And so Mark went and spent time with the crew and then wrote this. So if you could, so now imagine this. So now this is just, so here's another thing. So my husband, David, was in his youth, he was from St. Catharines. And for several years in his early to late teens, went all through the States doing Civil War reenactments. He loves that stuff. And he's just So I'm sitting there with him watching this, and Andy Kate was with us. So that's David and his two wives is what we like to refer to ourselves as. So the little three musketeers, we do a lot together. Anyway, so we're sitting there watching my cousin. Now David is still, well, so he was in a collision of two Canadian warships, so actually a tanker and a Canadian warship. So, and he's still really processing that, right? So I don't know. I'm not, and we're sitting there listening. So he tells the story about this is what this is about, and then he plays this song,
Oh,
and it is so haunting and powerful. I'll give you one of his CDs. He's a really,
fantastic.
really amazing storyteller. I'm all teary. And then all of a sudden I realize, and I look over, and here's my husband. Just, I mean, he's, 35 year military guy, right? He's not,
Oh, right.
he's holding it together, but he's undone with this song because this song is about a collision, and
Absolutely.
he has, well, it's his story, not mine, but he's struggling with the impact of being in that collision. And then we play this song. So when you're saying that, and I don't know if he hadn't done the little preamble, like you're saying, it didn't take long. This is
No.
what this is about. This is how that happened. And now you have us. Right.
Yeah,
So,
that's
because
it.
now I'm not having to figure out what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know what you're going to tell me. I think there's something about that happens with people if you say, and it only has to be like a couple of sentences or a
No,
paragraph.
absolutely.
You just let
No.
them know this is what this is about. Now you've got me. I'm engaged.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't wait to get I can't wait to get
It's a
those
cool
CDs
thing.
for him.
I always find it that, the story, it's like the music is just an emotional background because,
Yes.
you find the right chords that fit what you're saying. So it just becomes this rhythm behind the
Yes.
story, right? And
That sort of lets us there's something about music that just lets our guard down enough to listen to the lyrics. I mean, music on its own, an instrumental, is beautiful, and I would never take away from that. There's such a beauty in that. I think in a song with lyrics, there's a way that the music can guide us a little
oh,
bit.
there's no doubt. There's no doubt. Absolutely. There's something about the chords. You find the chords that, for me as a writer, that that strike me, that relating to what it is I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that. Oh, you know what? Now that I'm doing sound and vibrational working as a practitioner in that, I've been studying. I've now done a few certifications and diplomas in that. I'm learning so much about music from a therapeutic angle. I mean, we all knew it's emotional and it's therapeutic and it's relaxing, but the actual chords you would choose would resonate because they would
without a
carry
doubt.
certain
It's
frequencies,
frequencies and vibration.
right? It's going
Absolutely.
to do that. So that's why you could put some words to different chords and it may not have the same impact because of the vibrations. And so, like with me, if I'm doing a sound bath with a person and I'm getting their history, now I know, okay, there's certain frequencies that this person will benefit, much like, take
wow.
vitamin C or whatever because you're getting a cold. I'd be like, okay, so this is happening. These are the frequencies that I do most of it organically and intuitively, but I will be very specific. Same with what you're saying with that song. The bed that it lays in.
Yeah, it's and it's very impactful. And that tour, for me, again, I met some just remarkable people, and uh, one especially, his name was Emery Campbell, and Emery, a black man, uh, in near Savannah, Georgia, which is the border of South Carolina. Oh,
Right.
sorry. Yeah, the border of South Carolina and Georgia,
Right. Okay.
Savannah. And you know, he comes from a long line of, comes from, his heritage is African, and so he's called a Gullah, Gullah, and the
Okay.
Gullah were the are the remnants of slaves, the last remnant of the slaves, and they live along the coast, Atlantic coast, from North Carolina down through to Florida, and their communities still speak the patois of English and African language, and they still, all their food is still the African food, and they're just remarkable. And some believe that they may have come originally from Angola, Africa. So that's where you get Gullah, Angola, right? Angola.
Right.
So, anyways, he was remarkable, and I met him. I was doing a concert there, and we met. And then he said, "I want to take you." He was a tour guide, and he made tours into the Gullah culture on these islands. So
Wow.
he said to me, "I'd like to take you on a tour." And I said, "Well, okay, how much? Blah, blah, blah. Where do we meet?" He says, "No, I'm going to take you on a private tour." And he took me alone. And I went into the Gullah people's homes. We ate, we sat and talked. And this was the inspiration for when I got home. I did a ton of research and did my CD on slavery and that horror, which I play a lot now, because in America, they're actually trying to rewrite the history of what took place, and they're trying to make it like slavery was not a bad thing, and it's really it's grotesque. Anyway, so that was another man
Right.
who inspired me
There's been
tremendously.
a lot of rewriting of history in the last years.
Well,
Few
the
years.
victors write history anyways,
That's right.
so it's never the full story.
Yes. Wow, that's what an incredible gift, like for someone to trust you that much to take you. And now, have you kept in touch with that guy, that
Yeah,
person?
Emery, yeah, I as often as I think of it, it was 13, 12 years ago, and so I haven't contacted him in a few years, but I probably will, just because I'm thinking about it a lot.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, I guess mostly what I'm wondering is if he's heard the CDs.
Oh, I sent Emery
I was
as soon as
guessing,
I
but
finished the two CDs I had, and I also send them because I have them all. They're all on my site, anyways. So I send out always to my friends in the South that I met. But I go into like a a diner. This was great. It was in Georgia. Went into a diner. I'm sitting there, and I've got some of my CDs there, and some of the folks, they just say, "Well, like, what are y'all doing down here?" And because I always take my guitars into the restaurant because I don't want them in my car.
yes.
And I said, "Well, I'm just touring around." He said, "Well, what y'all doing? Like, what kind of music?" So I tell them, and then he says, "That your CD?" I said, "Sure. What's it about?" And then there we go. It's about the Civil War. Oh man. They say, says, We don't call it down here. We don't call it the Civil War. We call it the War of Northern Aggression. Right? They don't even consider it. It's they aggressed. They were the aggressors on us. It's fascinating to talk to them. And I get up, I go to leave, and they say, Lonnie, it ain't over.
Yes, I've
So that it's like it was so fascinating to meet so many of the people there and to have really good discussions with it. Because my stories were just stories. I wasn't being political. I wasn't trying to talk about winners and losers. I was
Right.
telling them, here's history. This is the history of those times. It's, you can't change what took place. And if
right.
you don't look back, you'll never be able to resolve things. You'll never be able to move forward. You have to know what your history is. Anyways, I'm a history nut in that
I
way.
love it. Are you kidding?
Right.
This is amazing, because this is what makes up a human being. I mean, this is these things that you're passionate about makes sense to me. It's all a part of who you are, right? That's the tapestry of Lonnie.
Yeah, it's true, and again, I've just been really fortunate to get these inspirational moments. Again, just very briefly, I was in Savannah, gorgeous city, and someone said to me, we were chatting, and I found out I was a musician, and they said, you got to go an hour inland. There's a luthier there, and he's got a music store. And so I go into the backwoods of Georgia, and come upon this like wood shed. It was a big size cabin, and I walk in, and there was like just umpteen mandolins and guitars, all that he had made, and it was just stunning. And in the middle was in a glass case was this mandolin. It was like remarkable. It was Ricky Skaggs bought it. If you know Ricky Skaggs.
Oh yes, oh my goodness, yes.
And it's $59,000 price tag on this mandolin. It's like encased in glass. So I'm talking to this guy, Mr. Wood. His name was Wood. Can't remember his first name. Anyways, he said, asked me, he said, Lonnie, are you sticking around here? Or are you just leaving? He says, because, it was a Sunday and they were open. And he said, because Sunday is usually some of the folk come in from the backwoods and they do a little playing, little circle playing, 2 or 3 guitar players maybe. So I said, I'm hanging in, because it was in the morning. So I went and had lunch and came back, and in come these musicians. And he said, normally they get 2 or 3, they had 10 this day. They had fiddlers, a bass player, they had 4 guitar players, they had a mandolin player, banjo player, and they sat down in a circle. And here they go, 4 hours I was there. 4 hours listening to bluegrass like I've never heard. And all of them, of course, they didn't know each other, all of them. Some of them did.
Right.
They all know all the songs. So they would just call out a tune, and all of them sang. So it was this choir of bluegrass. And then I had a 12-string, Taylor 12-string, and I pulled it on and said, I'm going to join in. So I'm joining in, and then we started talking. And then they asked me why I was there and everything. I told them about the Civil War. Oh, this guy comes, says, I'll be right back. He goes into his truck, big pickup truck. He pulls out a binder. And he says, Lonnie, I carry this with me everywhere. And it's his great-great-grandfather who fought in the Civil War. And he's got all the pictures and of his great, and he's turning the pages and he's crying while he's telling me these stories. I'm like, my mind is totally blown. And then, so I give him a CD. And so the whole 10 of them say, well, teach us a song, Lonnie. So I taught them one of the songs, and it was like, here we go, boom. And they played my tune. It was just unbelievable. It was just remarkable. So that was just like more unbelievable
Oh, what an
just
absolute gift.
experience of, it's like a life experience. Like you couldn't ask for it. And it was all little bizarre little incidents that led me to this one guy sitting on a bench who said, "Oh, you got to go inland about an hour to this," and it was all timing. Like I could have said, it's a long way to go. I don't know. I'm
Right.
busy, but I wasn't.
But you did.
Yeah.
But you did.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
so this is, to me, this is life. It's, the beauty of it is just if you let yourself be open to stuff,
yes.
and not caught up in your own sort of routine and just take a chance on stuff, and especially musically. Take a chance with your music, and just if you love doing it, then do it.
And do it. Oh man. Oh, I think that maybe this particular episode,
Holy geez.
if we could, I think that's just a beautiful place to wrap this episode up.
Fantastic.
You are
Let's go. Let's get into the next section, which is
that's
my stuff with Hank Lionheart.
I can't wait.
Hank?
Oh, he's a dear friend.
Oh,
Yes.
geez.
He's a dear friend, and so thank you so much for this, Lonnie,
Great pleasure.
and we're gonna go on to part 3. Like, stop us, we're crazy. Like, this is awesome. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Lonnie, and
Great
to
pleasure.
the listeners.
Thank you, Allie.
Oh, thank you. My goodness. And to the listeners, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And you really, man, these are amazing, amazing stories and experiences. And so this is Allie and Find Your Joy. There is going to be a part 3, so do come back and join us. Thanks again for spending some of your time with us today, and do find your joy.
Woo.
Thanks so much for joining me today. If you found a piece of your joy in this episode, I would love to hear about what came up for you so that we can continue to grow the impact of this show. Thanks again. See you soon. And remember, find your joy.